We have 6 major beliefs and behaviours that are destructive, and you don't know why you feel uneasy, you don't know why you're unhappy. So if we can learn to shift systems, we'll approach life very differently.
Really?
The chimp system, it's a survival mechanism, making decisions that are not rational. The problem is a lot of people live in that all the time. People say to me, have you got a chimp? And I keep saying, it's almost a gorilla.
So many people believe that they are stuck in a pattern and you'll never escape it. I was constantly in chimp brain.
So I stress you in some way and the chimp system lights up and now you're very emotionally based. And the problem is you're being hijacked. So there's techniques of how to clean your brain. You have to try putting outside your head all the problems because reality challenges beliefs.
Wow.
In now 40 years of doing this, everybody improves and then you'll be the person you keep saying, I'd love to be.
I always try and not cry in this podcast. It's really hard.
The biggest problem I get with people listening is...
So, Professor Steve Peters, it's so nice to have you here with me today. And I'd like to start with a question, actually, about...
First, thank you for inviting me and call me Steve. Right.
Hi, Steve. Steve, I'd like to talk to you about when did the sort of chimp idea come to you? How old were you then?
It was a gradual thing, and it's now 30 years ago.
Wow.
So I was a doctor then doing clinics, and obviously I'd been trained in medical approaches, and it is a mixture of therapeutic, like talking therapies and medication, and knowing which one is appropriate, if not both. And there was a light bulb moment where I was chatting with a patient, and I just felt there's 2 different people talking to me. And by then, just suggesting things, I seemed to be getting a different answer. Then by reassurance, I got another answer. Then by unsettling them, I thought, so I needed to then look at functional MRI scanners, which are like the brain working in real term. And in real times, you can see which parts are lighting up. But at first, it was just like the whole brain lights up. And you think, how can you tell? But if you slow it down, there is a definite pattern forming. So keeping this simplified, I ended up with 2 leaders of the brain. So this was effective, the 2 people talking to me. One of them was the person, and one was, I realised, was a machine. So we look at often damage in someone. So someone who's had like a stroke and damaged this bit, I'd call the person. Then the machine talks to me, and their partners or relatives say, this is the person we knew, but not quite right. There's changes, and I'm thinking that's because the machine's in charge now. And then others, I would be thinking, I worked with someone where the machine was in charge and their life was quite dysfunctional. And you start giving them ideas of beliefs and behaviours, and you start working therapeutically, and they changed. And they started changing as a person and becoming what I call the real person. And the machine then started losing power. So that's where it all started. And I suddenly thought, at first I called it Devils and Angels, just to give it a name. And one of my students came, she's Muslim, and she said to me, I'm not happy, Dr. Peters, with having these devils in me. And I said, okay. And I had to think, and it dawned on me that you've got to go back to neuroscience and the hominids, the great apes. And so I looked at the great apes, and that's when, speaking to a specialist, they were saying that the chimpanzee and the human are different to the others. And in the way our brain is structured and thinks, but we have this additional system, which is us, whereas the chimpanzee didn't. It has it, it's too primitive to use. So, but the chimp system was the same. So that's where they came from. I just said, that's your chimp system. It's given to you genetically. It isn't you. And people, the students at Sheffield where I work, they were saying they got it. They loved that. And this girl come back and said, I'm happy with the chimp. He said, I can see that in me.
It's quite interesting that, though, isn't it? Using words or coming up with kind of a theory behind it is important to think of everybody and be inclusive and make sure that it's not stressful or distressing for someone.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to alienate anyone. And it was just, it's not for everyone. It's for those who relate to it. But I'm saying that the neuroscience shows us we have 2 effectively thinking systems, and you can learn to move from one to the other. And if you can learn to move, then you change.
What's so nice, I think, is this idea of you can change. I think so many people believe that they are stuck in a pattern and they can't escape it. And sometimes you think these behaviours or these ideas are so entrenched that you'll never escape it.
This is going to be really, I'm going to try and do it simplified again. It's a hard concept. I think people don't change. They are who they are, but they're masked by this machine. So when I find the real person, which is the one that they say, I would love to be, and I say, if you say I'd love to be calm, compassionate, have integrity, that you're telling me who you are now. And I can find that person. And that's what really inspired me. I thought, I know I can find this person inside this machine. And if I can remove the machine, I find the person. So you always are that person. It's not you trying to be them. What you're really saying, the problem is you're being hijacked constantly by a machine. And if I can show you that what that machine's trying to do, and then you find yourself, you then manage the machine, you'll be the person you keep saying, I'd love to be. But the machine has got a grip on some people with behaviours, thinking, and you've got to start really taking it apart and restructuring it. And I did question, can you really restructure the brain? And the answer was yes. So a lot of research around 2000 was done once we had these functional scanners to show you can literally change. It's no different to you going to the gym and building muscle. Your brain will change. Structures aren't fixed. So people talk of an amygdala. That changes in size all the time, depending on what you do with it. It's
Can you
not
just
fixed.
explain to people what the amygdala
Yeah,
is?
the amygdala is one that a lot of people have heard of. It's a very small, it's on like a peanut size in the middle of your brain. And it's the fight, flight, freeze mechanism. It actually does tons of other jobs. I'm being a nerd now. It's got about 17 sets of nuclei and they're all grouped. But we talk about fight, flight, freeze because it's easy, because we all recognise that.
Yeah.
But a lot of us don't want that. We don't want to have fight, flight, freeze. So that's a good example of the machine hijacking you. Because if people say, I don't want to panic, I don't want to run away, I don't want to avoid things, or I don't want to get aggressive, I don't want to get hostile or angry or frustrated. But that's what that part of the brain does. But if we learn how to manage this and we can reset some of this, then it stops doing it. It literally will shrink in size. It loses power. So there are parts of the brain which intrigue me that you can build up, which actually what we call modulate or manage it. So it influences it to calm down. And I started working on this thinking, can I do it? And my first, I call them guinea pigs, they were patients. So I thought, no medication, we're going to work on these areas and see if I can do it with them. And they did it. And they were saying, I feel so different.
Wow.
And that was like so inspiring that I then developed the chimp model, and the students were merciless in saying, which was good, show me the scientific evidence. So I worked a lot and learnt a lot. And around, I'd say 2005, so 20 years ago, the model was finished, but I didn't go public because I kept thinking, by then this academic professor, I'm thinking, am I really going to go around and see you got this little inner chimp? But I was inspired enough by the students who said it's wrong not to share it. So I thought, oh, well, it's life. I put my head on the block and get mocked. So I threw it out there and it just took off
It
virally.
absolutely took off. I mean, I always think of you when every time I go abroad and I go into WH Smith's and I think I'm going to go and look for a book, you are always in there in the you must read pile. I mean, it's been 20 years. It's unbelievable how long. And it's still
selling.
You know, it's a top bestseller. Yeah. It's unbelievable. How many copies have you sold?
I think in all formats, nearly 2 million.
I mean, that is so brilliant. What I love is the way that you look at everybody as a, how can I unpick you? It's like a problem that you can solve in someone.
Puzzle.
Yeah, it's a puzzle.
It's a puzzle.
Exactly. And the satisfaction that you get when you fix the puzzle.
Yeah.
Like how nice that feels. But what I love about it, I mean, I've got goosebumps every time I talk about it. What I love about it is, that you get somebody, you do this to someone, like fix their self-esteem, but then the good that they go out and do to the world with this new self-esteem and the difference that they make to other people, it's like a wave, a ripple. Yeah, it's amazing. I want to go back. You were talking about sport. There was so much in what you just said. I'm going to pick it a little bit. No, it's amazing. I want to go back and talk about sport and talk a little bit about there was a footballer, wasn't there, that you helped? Steve Gerrard, was it? And also Chris Hoy.
Yes.
Because were you sort of part of the team that were helping him, or you were helping him personally before Beijing?
Yeah, I met Chris over 20 years ago.
Wow.
I was reminding me, before he was famous, again, I only, as a doctor, I can only talk about people who give me permission, and clearly Chris has, and he's written the book and explained what I'm doing with at the moment. And I can say he's one of the most genuine people that I've met. He's an absolute gentleman.
He's amazing. I've met him a couple of times. He's absolutely knockout.
He is exactly what
Yeah.
you see is what, you get what you see. He was trying to help himself focus. He was always in a good place. So people said you always work with people who are falling apart at the seams. I work with anybody. It's what people want to do with their mind that's important. So he wanted to learn how to focus at the Olympics. So I actually went to Athens Olympics with him, but I wasn't public then because I didn't actually want to be in the limelight. So for 3 years, I didn't do interviews. I kept sort of in the dark, in the shadows, because I just didn't feel comfortable being in the public limelight. But I reckon then I realised if I didn't go in the public limelight, I couldn't help people.
Right.
I could only help a limited number. And maybe just think, okay, deep breath, let's go. And then I went into the limelight with him. So I went to Beijing with the team. But Chris again works really hard on the mental skills.
Yes.
Really hard. So, again, he worked every week. We'd have regular sessions, and in between he might call. But he learned how to manage his mind. But he was always in a good place. So his wasn't an emotional thing. It was a definite specific. Can you help me to do the following? And he achieved it.
I think that's very interesting that you say that he's very good with his mind, because I think in any case when we're talking about a method or even somebody that would go and do something as simple as a life coach, there's no point in doing anything like that if you're not prepared to put the work in.
Yeah.
It's like being a bit of a teacher's pet. Like, you tell Chris to do something and he'll come back the next week and he's done it.
He's done it.
Times 10.
Yeah.
But that was the year that he just won gold after gold after gold.
Yeah, 6 in a row.
I mean, unbelievable.
3 Olympics.
What an achievement.
Yeah. And again, he deserved it. We forget, though, again, that was just part of one piece of the jigsaw.
Yes.
I'm not going to say it wasn't crucial, but, the physical aspects were horrendous that he had to go through. And, there was a whole team behind him with nutrition, coaching, medics, physios. So I was part of that team. Again, I don't know how much everyone would have to say. Some people say it's like a small amount. Some people say everything on the day if you're not mentally in the right place.
Yeah.
That's like life.
Life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what I try and do is explain that with Chris. I'm teaching emotional skills. So you're right. It's like anything. If you practice, then you get better. The encouragement for anyone listening is I've never had anyone who doesn't improve, who puts work, and I've never had that happen. In now 40 years of doing this, everybody improves, but it's like, I liken it to taking you all to the running track and saying, we're going to make you run 100 meters. And some will be fit and can do a reasonable time, and some will be very unfit, not even make it. But all of us can learn to do it, but some will reach Olympic level and some will reach school sports day level. But that doesn't mean we can't improve. And it's the same with emotional skills. I'm not asking people to be in this amazing place where they never have an emotional crisis, they never have thoughts that are eating them up. I'm asking them to improve and start picking things off and show gradual improvement over years. And then know what to do if you can't manage emotion. Then I can say, right, we can put things in place when you think, okay, I'm struggling here. It's not that that's it then. So it's a complex thing, but it's unique to the person.
I think one of the things that really resonated when you were talking a minute ago was when you said you can change. And I got a bit emotional then because...
Take your time.
I always try and not cry in this podcast. It's really hard.
So...
I was like, I'm not going to cry in this one.
Listen, I've done it where somebody turns on me and they start asking you detail, and I just broke, and I thought, oh God, this is so embarrassing, so humiliating. But at the end of the day, like people say to me, have you got a chimp? And I keep saying, it's almost a gorilla. I'm a very emotional man. I tend to manage it well because I need to. I can't meet people and then break down with them. But, you don't want to be non-emotional.
No.
You don't want to be non-emotional.
And I think what it is this idea that it's in you and you can find it. Like, you are you, and you can't lose you.
Yeah.
You might lose it for a bit because something else is taking over. I'm not being very clear, but
no, you are.
when
What you're saying is,
you can come back.
I'll do your analysis.
Yeah, great.
Correct, from. So you've always been the same person.
Yes.
You've never changed.
Yeah.
But life throws things at you, so you then learn really poor coping strategies.
Yeah.
You make poor decisions. You make emotional decisions. You grab a hold of things that you think might give security and then find that they let you down because you don't recognise that within you it's all there. It's all there. But because you can't find it, you have to substitute something to survive. But that can often lead to even more detriment. And then that spirals to this low self-esteem. You can't get off the floor. Yeah. And there has to be someone, which there's a lot of people like me, who will come in and try and get rid of the mess and go, right, let's draw a line and let's just go back and review what happened here. So, and let's get rid of judgment. Let's get rid of regret. Let's say what we're going to learn, what experiences have we got that were really at the time negative, but we can turn them around. So if you learn how to do that with this positive mindset, which is not easy, and I do think most people should turn to a psychologist, a therapist, counsellor, someone who's qualified and experienced in it so that they can help you go through this. It's a lot easier with someone. Then you can come out of this and you can look back and be happy with your life. You know, and realise it was always you there. We just need to untangle you. And as I say, for me, now we're on a different thing. We're untangling you from the machine, so it stops hijacking you, and recognise who you are and what the machine is, because it does think for you. But also we're untangling you from experience. You know, sometimes you've got to go back and reprocess things. And we do get what I call emotional scars. So we can't remove them. What we need to do is recognise what they are and put them in their place, but learn how to manage them. And there's different ways and different days that you might want to manage them differently. Again, a skill.
Can I talk to you about resilience?
Yeah.
Because I feel like emotional scars are things that I think as a parent we try and like protect our children from. But actually I feel like also my emotional scars from my life have been brilliant learning. Like I've learnt from everything I've been through. Good things, always. Like bad things have always been a good experience in the end.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. But it's interesting how as parents you want to protect your children. What do you think is best as a parent in order to build resilience in children?
Oh, wow, this is a big topic.
Sorry. You're good at big topics. Come on,
Steve. We'll be here till tonight. I think I'll go on two different aspects. One, I agree with you. I've dealt very recently with a parent who was trying to protect the child, and I said, don't protect the child. Give them the skill to understand, accept, and deal with life. Don't remove them from it. But obviously, I'm not saying let them be subjected to horrendous experiences. I'm saying let them have the rough and tumble of life, warn them it's coming, and then learn how we start getting used to this and managing it, because we have to face life is rough. So that's one aspect of experience. But a bigger one for me was always, and I'm going on research, I'm back to being nerdy. When they start looking at this, and I want to know what's the difference between a child being resilient and an adult, because they are different. Yes. The way the brain works is different, and an adolescent is different. So I would work with the individual at the position that child or adolescent or adult has reached. And emotionally, we're all at different points in life. So you can't say same for every 6-year-old, every 10-year-old. No. It isn't. We're all different. So you find where we are. The biggest factor focusing in then, and I push this, is get the child to be a critical, constructive critical analyst of themselves. Don't keep rewarding or punishing, or punishment never works, but don't be the judge jury, because it teaches the child nothing. All it does is teach the child to keep looking externally. You need to say to the child, this is only my opinion. And the research seems to back it to say, you know, I keep it simple on this one. If they paint a picture, ask them to say what's good about it. Ask them to say what's not so good. Ask them what they could improve on the next time. But recognise they're talking objectively about a piece of work, not themselves. Whereas what we tend to do is muddle them up with what they produce and what they can do, what they can achieve. And that leads to problems 10 years later.
Yes.
Because then they look to their peer group and say, do you approve of what I'm wearing, what I'm doing? And then social media destroys them, because they've never learnt to be self-critical, but in a constructive, positive manner. So the evidence base is if you start as young as 4-year-old to get children to, you still compliment. I'm not saying you don't but you make their opinion the one that counts.
Yes.
And then they will learn to respect the opinion of 1 or 2 people that care about them, that give them good criticism and, good compliments where they think these are helpful. And they dismiss people that they think, well, that's not important because I know what I feel. I know what the people who count feel. And then the theory, we seem to be born at practice as adults, we do the same. So I learned to think, I'll be the judge of how I'm doing, which gives me my stability. And I often say to people, don't let somebody else own your happiness. Take it back. Why would you live your happiness to someone else and say, what you say will affect me? You have to learn to skill, and we can do it. So I own my happiness. What people say and think is not important, but I do listen to people that love and care about me because they're going to give me criticism which I need to listen to. So I do allow them in, but for Joe public that I don't know, or even people, acquaintances, colleagues, I'm respectful, but they won't get through because that's not what I allow.
What happens if you've got a parent or a loved one who is critical of you? They're a loved one, but they are saying things that is undermining you and your opinion of yourself.
Again, if you look at what I've said, that's where, had we learned as a child to say, let me do the analysis, then what they say isn't as bad. You just feel like, okay, it will still affect because it's a parent. So now we're getting a bit more complex. So the chimp model that I brought in when I said there's the your brain and the chimp brain, the problem is as we grow up, the chimp must necessarily go to the parents for survival. So therefore we idealize our parents and we have expectations of them and we don't grow up. So even at any age, 30, 40, 50, we look to our parents through the chimp's eyes saying, you should be this ideal parent. Which is ridiculous, really. They're a human being and no one gives them skills to be a parent and they get things wrong and they can be not so nice. But our chimp brain won't accept that. So we're very critical of our parents and what they should and shouldn't do. Whereas if we'd switch systems and say as a human, they're just another person.
Yes.
And I have to temper the fact, why let them come through the barrier? Let me just put a barrier up. Because what you're saying isn't actually helpful and I'm dismissing it. But if you're in a chimp brain system and you literally give your oxygen supply to that, you'll keep getting hurt. And so I teach people to move systems and say, right, let's see them as an adult. Let's see them as someone who is also dysfunctional, someone who doesn't know how to communicate. Also, I like to use the word that they're not a bad parent. They're not a good parent. It's a mismatch.
Yes.
You need more love and affection than they've got to give.
Wow.
Or the way that they're giving it isn't the way you want it given. So a lot of dads I've seen and mums, but dads in particular, seem to throw money at children in a way of trying to get their love when they want a cuddle from dad. So there's a mismatch in what I need and what I'm getting. But that doesn't mean they're not trying. It means they don't know how to do it. So behind locked doors, I often find these harsh, critical parents blubbering in tears thinking, I can't do this. I don't know how to show love to the daughter or the son. So it's a complex one, but also, in fairness to people listening, you might have a psychopath for a dad or a mum, and you've got to recognise it is what it is, go in human mode and say, right, that's what I was given. Stop complaining. It's not going to help you say, why didn't they do this? Why? They didn't. So, and I'm tough now on people and say, let's start with what is and let's work with it. But I'd be giving TLC because we're still going to chimp mode saying, well, I just never felt loved or respected or understood. And unfortunately, they're the emotional scars, which we can learn to manage. We got very heavy here.
No, well, it's really interesting because I was looking at, I was thinking about my experience with my mother and I was thinking about other people who I ended up estranged from my mother, but I did that because they say that insanity is repeating the same mistakes and expecting different results. And I just kept going back thinking that she might kind of parent me. Then I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm asking somebody
who can't do it.
She can't do it. Yeah. And actually, after her death, I found enormous forgiveness and an ability to understand that she just was never going to be able to do it in a way that I couldn't when she was alive, which was interesting. But what's your opinion on people that estrange themselves from their parents? Like, should you be able to work it out, or is it okay to do that?
I always say never use the word should. It can be used improperly. Could is better. So instead of saying should we be able to, could we work it out? It's just to stop the judgment of feeling, why couldn't I do it?
Yes.
And the answer is sometimes we can't. Could we? Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we can. So it's understanding what have you done, what have you tried, and you've exhausted all things, then you've got to be realistic in survival mode. And if you think, right, we cut them off, then I'm not disapproving, but that's your decision. Or limit the contact, or be prepared mentally, psychologically. Don't expect something that isn't going to happen.
Yes.
And rather see them in a different light. And then my experience has been most people can then come to a reasonable relationship with the person, but they're not then expecting them to do something they can't deliver.
I mean, I always think, how would I feel? I used to think, how would I feel if she died and I haven't seen her for many years? How will I feel? And I felt like I thought I would feel okay. And when she died, I did feel okay. But it's a big one, that, I think, letting go of someone that, and I often hear people who kind of ask me, was it the right thing? And a bit like you're saying, I always say, look, this is your life and your parent, only you know if it's the right thing. But for me, it definitely was.
I think it's a case of sitting down and working out what are your options with this person.
Yes.
What have I tried? And again, this is really approaching in a rational way, rather than just going emotionally and think, right, today I'm going to be nice to them. And that's not a plan. Whereas if and I'm not saying it should be so heavily analytical, but have a structure where you think, right, I've exhausted all possibilities. This works or this doesn't. So we know what we can and can't do. And then a big thing that you said, which is a bit different, is often we look back on decisions we make and regret them. And that's really actually unhelpful, because at the time we make a decision, it's the right decision. It's as simple as that. It's the right decision on what information we've got and the state of mind we're in. So we don't make wrong decisions, we make decisions. And I think, going back and beating yourself up for anything in your life is really, really negative, and it's hopeless. And the reality is, you've got to say, at that moment in time, I made this with good intentions, or I made it because I couldn't deal with life, I couldn't deal with the situation, but it was the right decision at the time. It wasn't the wrong decision. It may turn out there could have been a different type of decision, but at the time, you do what you're capable of doing. So I think then it becomes more positive to say, right, how do I go forward making decisions which are more helpful? What process could I now use that I didn't use at the time? That's then very constructive and a positive mindset, where you think, I'm looking at life like you've done and think things I did, I don't regret. I just think I did it at the time.
Yeah.
What can I learn from this? So if it's not a great thing, I don't want to repeat it. How can I get insights? And that's a lot of work that I do. So you're clearing all this backlog of unprocessed information in people's lives, so they get a freedom to draw a line and move into a new chapter, which we can all do, and leave behind all of this, process it and bring positives with you. I
feel like when you've been, I'm going to get out the drawing. Steve, it's time for the drawing. Because you've talked about two parts of the brain. But actually, in this diagram, there are three parts. So This was drawn the very first time when people were saying, well, where are these elements? So it's very inaccurate in that a diagram, just to give you the idea, there's three bits of the brain. It explains. So your human is in the yellow frontalet. In fact, the chimp's also there, but it complicated things. So I put the chimp because it's limbic system in the middle of the brain, which is where the limbic system is. But there's a big strand going out into the yellow bit, and the chimp actually lives there. Right, so just for the people who are saying this isn't accurate, what I was trying to say is the chimp and human are the two thinking systems which we can see. So I stress you in some way, and it's very like the chimp system lights up, and now you're very emotionally based and making decisions that are not rational. They may be paranoid, you lose perspective, you can't see beyond the moment you're in.
You might want immediate gratification instead of delayed gratification. So you become impulsive. You react fast to things. You don't respond. It's just a reaction with words or actions. So it's not thought through. It's a survival mechanism.
Yes.
And then I realized that a lot of people live in that all the time. And what I did is started working to say, we're going to put a pause and move the blood supply into this yellow frontal bit to the human, which is at the top of your head. And what happened then when I moved it, the person gained perspective, they gained reality, and they started thinking rationally and logically, if I do this, what am I going to feel like in half an hour? And now they could do it. Now they can press the pause button and relax. So I was thinking, how can I train people to move themselves rather than me move them? But we can see this on a functional MRI scanner. We can see it literally lighting up.
So amazing.
Which means that if we can learn, which is what I quite challenged 30 years ago, to shift systems, we'll approach life and ourselves and other people very differently in the way we want to, rather than this emotional reaction. Because humans respond, they don't react.
You said earlier that you can live in your chimp brain all the time.
Yes.
So it is possible that you are constantly in that kind of reactive place. That must be exhausting.
It is, and it's sad when you meet these people, and behind locked doors I can get them, and I see what I said before, I see the person. The person comes out, and I think, and now I know who you are. And then something happens, and immediately go into chimp mode again. I think, okay, I'm just seeing a chimp again. And then they go with the chimp because it feels right, and then they regret it. Then they think, what's wrong with me? And I keep saying, nothing wrong with you. I found you. But you're coated in this chimp.
I found you.
Yeah.
Like you're in there.
You're in there.
People get very emotional when you say that.
Those who realise what I'm saying, yes, because they suddenly think, I do know who I am. And you do know it, because if you have a friend that you're close to and you've had like an evening together and you start opening up, you relax and you become you. And suddenly you don't feel any venom, you don't feel any anger, you don't feel regret. You feel relaxed and peaceful. You know, and suddenly you're you now. So your best friends know who you are. And your best friends don't mud you up and say, well, you're really impatient or aggressive, or they don't. They say, no, that's not you. But behind locked doors, I found the person. And then that's so rewarding if I can just get them to see it. And then you literally is like growing the person. And then we're coming to the computer bit. It's really the rest. The rest of the brain is the computer. So when I work with children, we just do chimp and human, and the children respond better than adults.
People have seen it. Yeah. People have seen it a lot.
They've seen that.
You're done.
3 systems.
This is it. Enjoy it. Goodbye.
Right.
So the computer, because we haven't really talked about that yet.
So children like just working in human and chimp, and some adults do, because you keep it simple. I had an 80-year-old and I wrote My Hidden Chimp, which is a children's book, and he wrote to me and he said, that's better than the Chimp Paradox.
Wait, so just explain that. So you had a children's book, but you also had one for parents come out at roughly the same time?
Yeah, that was...
What was the parents one called?
It wasn't meant to be. It was added on to go with the book. So
okay.
It was to sort of like, and then it expanded a bit. It was a little bit rushed, and it was a regret, but not fully.
No regret.
No regrets. Not
no
fully.
Regrets.
It was to say I need to go back and do that again, but I haven't time. So what I said was, we'll send it out. So that's called the Silent Guides. So the Hidden Chimp book doesn't touch the computer. It's implied, because children work on a very basic level. As adults, we work much more with the computer. What we do with the computer is we have beliefs, we have behaviours, we have automatic behaviours and beliefs. So it runs our life when the other two go silent. So when you meet somebody and introduce someone new, we have automatic things like, hello, how are you? And there's a response that we're programmed to say, I'm fine, or whatever, and then how are you? That's all. We don't think about it. It's just programmed. When we go to work, driving, or get on the tube, or whatever we're doing, we don't think about it. We just know what to do. So the computer keeps running. It doesn't analyse or think. It's just automatic.
Instinct.
Yeah, you've programmed it, but we program it to learn behaviours as well. We program it to use avoidance a lot. We program it, so, and it knows what it's doing. You know, we program it to overeat. We program it with excuses. So it comes to the rescue of the chimp. If we try and manage the chimp, in comes the computer. And these are what I call the gremlins. Beliefs and behaviours really don't help you.
Right.
But sometimes you don't even know they're there. So, for example, again, extreme, just to drive a point home, some people have this belief that they're not as good as other people. Or the world, they don't belong in this world, they're onlookers. They're common. It's a defence mechanism of the chimp saying, I won't go out into the world because it's dangerous. And then the gremlin comes in, which is the false belief saying, yeah, you're not as good as other people. So when I say to someone, right, let's go, whatever, they'll go, oh, immediately the gremlin's going, you're not as good as other people, and you probably get things wrong and don't do any risks. You'll look silly. So I need to find that gremlin and remove it.
Right.
So that's not actually the chimp at all. It's a belief you're holding. So when I look at people, we often have, I would say there are 6 major beliefs people hold that are destructive. So on average, I'll turf 6 out. I work with someone who I can't go public about, somebody well known, and I had 22 gremlins, and we got a big piece of paper with all these false beliefs, and then we found they danced together.
Oh, wow.
And what he said is,
By that.
One will say you're not as good as others, so we then bring what I call a constructive belief. Look, what do you really believe? And it's nobody's world, it's our world, and I'm as good as anyone else. I may not be as good in whatever talent I've got, but I'm a nice person and I value my. So that's your belief, I'm as good as everyone. And then there's another gremlin will come in and go, yeah, but that's not what other people think. So it reinstates the first gremlin, so you've got to kill them both off. And we're literally getting rid of them. So often I say one belief is followed by about 4 or 5. They have little gangs. Yes. So I do an exercise. So let's just pick up all the beliefs, and then you find there's about 5 or 6. And we need to get rid of all of them, and otherwise they come back.
So can a life experience, like a divorce, create a load of new beliefs about yourself?
Massive.
And then you've got to go and work on those. Because when you get older, you're picking up more and more beliefs, right?
Oh, thousands. So what I say is it's almost like I ask people who work with me to do a 5-minute clearance at the end of the day and just go over the day and think, let's just have a look what happened. Let's get the right beliefs and interpretations. Otherwise, you're seeding again more beliefs that go into the computer, which are now hidden and keep nudging the chimp throughout the day. And you don't know why you feel uneasy. You don't know why you're unhappy. And you think, well, that's because there are all these unconscious beliefs. So I ask people to clean the computer up. So there's techniques of how to do it. And go over your day and say...
Is journaling good?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm working with someone at the moment who said this is really helping me. Again, it was someone that I'd been working with for a while, and they weren't as progressing as I'd wanted. And I suggested this. And I've used it with a lot of people. And this person said, this definitely has made a difference, because what I'm doing is, scientifically it's accurate, you're putting outside your head all the problems. So therefore, your human can now see them. If you keep them in your head, one of the rules of the brain is that the chimp keeps going over and around in a circle. It never solves any of them because it's not a solver. The human has to solve. But unless you talk, if you talk, this is why therapies work, the brain picks this up immediately and starts bringing in perspective, reality, challenges beliefs. And often we talk and go, oh, that's ridiculous. What I've just said isn't right, So talking is great, but if you can't, write it down, and sometimes you write and you think, that's crazy.
It is interesting how writing does give you a completely different perspective on something, I think.
Yeah.
So I like that idea of daily assessing.
Yeah.
So they don't run away.
Clean it up, and say, right, why is that helpful? Is this really going to help me, this belief? And again, sometimes a belief may need to be put on the table and challenged, because we can learn from it. So if someone says, well, you were very rude at that point, and you think, and you get home and you think, still chewing me up, that comment, because I don't think I was rude. Then you can reflect and say, right, don't be defensive. Why would they say that? Especially for someone who likes you. It means I need to rethink this. And this is a way I could have done it differently. And why would I have said that? What belief am I holding about that person or that situation? And this is where sometimes it helps to write it out, because it dawns on you. Or someone can talk to you and say, let's throw some ideas of what belief are you holding at that point. And then a therapist, a psychologist, or somebody like a doctor in my shoes would work through it with you. And then you've got to say, no, that's not right, Steve. And then you say, but I'll tell you what has made me think. That's how it works. You're a team. It's not me saying, right, that's wrong. I don't do that. It's you that says that's resonated and that hasn't resonated.
I mean, this idea, so many people find it hard. I think in relationships, I observe how relationships work. And I guess like later in life, I've met somebody and we work really well together. We can say quite difficult things and neither of us ever fly off the handle, or we will listen. I think because we know the other person genuinely cares about like us, that we can take a criticism and go, oh, okay, so what made you think that? Or what did I do? Or, okay, I'm going to think about that. Or you might want to go away and think about it a little bit and say, I'm going to think about how I'm going to respond because I need to go away and assess it and then come back, and then you can come back. It feels really healthy. But when I'm around other friends or couples and they get defensive with each other, it makes my heart hurt.
Right,
So
but again,
there's love there.
Yeah, you're going back to what I said before, where I'll be self-critical, but I will listen to the people who love and care for me because they're not hurting me. They're trying to help me. So therefore, it doesn't hurt. It's
But when you
productive.
see other people doing it to each other, when you know that they love each other,
Yeah.
like you think, oh, but you don't want to, you can't say something. It's their relationship. You can't.
But if couples realise that, the problem is sometimes we don't suffer enough. You know, I always say people won't move unless you're really suffering or you really see a reward. You have to recognise what's happening. But a lot of couples trundle along in a relationship which is almost not surviving.
Yes.
But it suits them, it's practical, it's comfortable, but the quality of life isn't great. But they tolerate it. And it's a shame because, like you say, they could get a much better relationship if they worked on it and thought, let's put some energy into it. But a lot of people don't want to do that. So
I think it's quite frustrating also when you see one person wanting to change and being prepared to kind of, and then the other doesn't. And I guess that's the beginning of the end. If you're on completely different journeys, then.
Yeah, and again, I do a lot of work in couple relationships. But
do you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, only because if you think about it, for most people, it's the most crucial aspect of your life.
Of course.
Even with like CEOs of companies that I'm asked to work with, and you're talking about high-performing teams and managing staff, but behind locked doors, it's often, can we go back to my family? You know, that's not unusual. I want to go back to something you said, because I think it's important. You said about a divorce happening and what could happen. So I'm putting it into boxes to try and make it accessible, understandable, that there's a difference between a divorce happening and you get emotionally scarred, and it does effectively scar you. So therefore the brain has now got almost damaged circuits. That doesn't mean we can't manage them, but it means we can't repair them. So we got to accept a little bit of a scar there. So when it raises its head, we learn what to do with it, as opposed to a divorce going through and someone getting damaged at the time, but we can repair that one. And it's not that, it's the kind of divorce, it's the kind of person. So a same person can go through a really traumatic, or two people at the same traumatic divorce from parents. One comes out unscathed and one is damaged.
Yes.
It isn't like, this is what will damage you. It's very much unique to you.
Yeah.
So it can even be a comment a teacher made when you were young that never left you and did some damage at that vulnerable moment in time, or a parent's made, whereas other people go, well, that's nonsense, just dismiss it. And you can't. For some reason, it went in. So we have a look at that. Now, I try and get it to be processed and removed, which you can do, and I've done that with people. It's finding it. But sometimes they say it just keeps coming back. And I'm saying, well, don't try and change it. Let's work with it then. Let's leave it. Stop trying to say, well, I can't do it, and therefore feeling a failure again. Say, no, well, when it raises its head, how do I contain it? What do I do and there's ways of doing that.
Is that what you're talking about when you talk about gremlins and goblins?
Yeah.
That gremlins are the things you can change, that you have power and control over, and you are able to say, right, that's it. I don't want to feel like this anymore, and you can change it. But the goblin is something that just won't leave you.
Yeah, it's something and it's not that it can be a devastation, like a parent dying suddenly, it was in a great relationship with you, and that can become something you can't really get over. But it can also be, like I've said, a comment that someone makes. And
yes.
And a teacher says, well, you're stupid and you always will be. And you have that still fixed in your head and you try and compensate throughout your life. And you think, we can go back and reprocess it. But sometimes, like I say, people say, I can't remove it. So we learn what to do with it. So we can overwrite it, but it's still there. So again, it gets a little bit complex here. Going back to very basics, I would be saying to people who are listening, if they really want to improve the quality of life and get to respect and love themselves, then it doesn't have to be my model. I'm strongly advocating that any work you do will start improvements, but be realistic.
Yes.
You know, it takes years sometimes to overwrite these programs in your brain. You can do it, but you have to have a very different approach, a very different mindset. And the biggest problem I get with people listening is they try and make a real big effort. And I'm saying it's paradoxical. The more you relax, the more power you get.
Yes.
The more you fight, the weaker you become, because the chimp takes you up and it will fight. Whereas when you relax the chimp and say, it's not that important now, we're just going to relax, the chimp then, it's got no purpose. It's there to defend and protect you. I have to say, I've got to plug the last book I wrote because I'm not down in the Chimp Paradox, or the other books that I don't regret. But I have to say, I've written one called A Path Through the Jungle. The reason I wrote it 10 years later is people said that left them in the air a little bit. It gives them the concept, but where was the lessons? So this is a bit heavier book. I was going to call it 1 year because that's the time I think it takes to work through it. And it's a course. It's a course in a book form.
Oh, great.
And it says you do 20...
Can you just tell us the name again?
A Path Through the Jungle.
Just want to say to anybody watching that if you go and look, we'll put all the information about all of Steve's book in the bit below. I'm sure anybody that watches YouTube a lot will understand what I'm talking about. I don't really understand what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean. Yes. So
I should say I don't know YouTube.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
I'm not that bad. But I'm old, so I'm allowed to say this. Oh, computers. It was quite funny when I got the first degree because when I got thrown in the limelight, they wrote to me and they said, I was at Stirling University, and they said, you're claiming you've got a master's degree from us, but you're not actually on the system. And I said, well, I did. And I was one of the very first students to qualify when it just opened. And they actually hand wrote it. It was before computers.
What?
And they found my name written in a black book, apparently. And said,
I love that. In a black book. That's amazing.
Said,
handwritten.
Yeah, you're not even on the computer system. So, anyway. So
You're in the book computer
back to the plot.
Yes.
So A Path to the Jungle is 27 units, and you talked about resilience, and that's what it's based on. But en route, it's trying to teach you about peace of mind, about happiness, and it gives a lot of practical stuff. So people do resonate. This is what I wrote for you, to do this on your own, or in a group, or with someone. And there's exercises at the end to make sure you've grasped it. And again, for people, I'm really advertising here, but I want to help people, and I think I've always never said it, but now I think I get people then write emails saying, well, how do I find out about you? We have a website, chimpmanagement.com. Yes. If you go on that, there's a lot of free stuff on it. We have to charge for some because obviously got to pay salaries. And also I want to progress this work with the animals and people.
Can I quickly say something? Never be embarrassed. I don't like it when people say, why do I have to pay? Because you can't get to as many people as you get to without having to have other people as part of your business to help you spread the word. It's madness to think that everything has to be for free. I think it's because of
my own background, where you think I've come from, we didn't have money. We never saw ourselves as poor, but clearly looking back, we didn't have money. We were well looked after as a family. But I think then I always think I don't want someone precluded because they can't afford it. The last thing I want someone to say, I can't afford to see you. I tend to put prices sliding because I try and help people that cannot afford.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of charity work as a company. We base it on that. So, but if you go online, there's a lot of stuff that'll help you with that. And we do run conferences. There's free resources in there. There's quite a bit. And I do a monthly, what I call the Troop episode, where I do one thought for the month and ask people to engage with it. And one of the team, got 10 mentors, who work with the public, can do it. But I just thought I'd mention it because again, I always get emails after these podcasts saying, well, what do we do with this information? So there is that book out there, and it runs through all these things you're talking about, and even has a chapter about parents and being unrealistic. It's got chapters on basic happiness, so that people can use them practically and hope they resonate with the exercises. And we do workshops, and we do a lot of public stuff. I'm going to do a public lecture in London, I think in the end of July, somewhere like that.
Tell me about the workshops.
We do workshops where people ask me, they'll say, can you do a workshop on, say, happiness? So if there's a call for that, then we organise it, and we'll go to a particular venue and we put it online. I do a Christmas charity conference every year, so that's just for charity, and we'll get about 100 people. So we do like workshops where you meet others. I like the social aspect, and then you meet others, and I'll go through a topic. I usually make it Christmas themed, but it can be peace on earth, and then we look at how we get inner peace. So there's serious stuff, but again, it helps charities, which I want to do.
When you're thinking about people that you'd like to reach, who do you think? Because we've talked a little bit about social media, and I have such a love-hate relationship with social media. I love the connecting, and I love finding my tribe, and I love laughing. Those are the things that I love about it. But I can see that I was very, very lucky to have lived a big life before social media came along. I'm extremely lucky that my youth wasn't captured on social media, because I probably would never be able to get a job. What's your opinion on young people and social media?
I don't do social media, but I think the way forward on social media is to, if people are going to do it, learn not to read everything, and learn to remember that some beliefs in this is the autopilots now in your computer that, and you mentioned this before we started this, 1 in 5 people, and that's a lot of people, 12 million people, are not very nice. They don't have compassion or empathy. So
1 in 5
1 in
don't
5
have compassion.
Yeah.
Wow.
They have, but it's very limited. 80% of us do. So reality check.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people that are very self-driven, don't really care about society, don't get disillusioned. We share the world with them. 80% are decent people. And 1 in 5 people are these who love everybody, they're sort of on almost an ecstasy high without taking ecstasy.
I think that's me.
Yeah, I'm in that boat.
Okay.
I admit it. So I love...
Wait. I love you.
You love what I'm saying.
Do you know what? I love you, though, as a person, what you stand for and everything. You're just such a great guy. Sorry, crawling back to my chair. You're brilliant. Sorry, yes, so 80%.
Thank you, but what I
we
do
are the
is
1%
brilliant.
who just loves
My friends
everybody.
might say, you don't know the real Steve. Yeah, they might give you a different story. Should interview one of them.
Like I've got to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say I'm fairly open book.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to hide, so why should
No.
I? But, so going back to the 1 in 5, 1 in 5 people, surround yourself with them on social media, and remember, when you see a nasty comment, it reflects them, not you.
Yes.
It reflects them. And again, go back to, which is why I'd build in someone who's doing it. So like yourself or other people that say it's get hurtful. Of course it's hurtful if you allow it.
Yes.
You've got to start putting autopilots that say, people don't own my happiness, and something's only as important as I make it.
Yes.
So if you're making it important, expect trouble. But if you say it's not important in my world. So in my world, I've got me, and I don't need someone to criticise. I can be self-critical in a constructive but positive way. But I've got a lot of good friends, and they will tell me, but they also love me and they support me. So again, you mentioned something about going back in life, and you think, I'm glad they didn't see me as a teenager. But we have to change the way we see people and say we all make mistakes.
Yes.
And we go through stages of life that are a mess. And there's a reason. Some of us need more affection and love, and so we look in the wrong places. Some of us need self-esteem, so we do things which are dumb and don't help us. But at the time, they all seem like the right thing, because we don't know what to do. And a load of teenagers are lost in this world.
Yes.
And now they've got this added impact of social media. So I would love to just get right across the nation and say to teenagers, stop. Take control of this, because you're up against your own hormones at the moment, and try and give them some wisdom ahead of their years. But wisdom comes in the form for teenagers, not in knowledge, because they know. It's in experience and affection. And I keep saying because they're in chimp mode all the time, we need to speak the chimp's language, which is emotion. And if we speak emotion, we'll get through. But if we keep speaking logic, it's foreign language.
Oh my God, okay, so we need to speak emotion.
You speak emotion, but
Yes.
positive emotion,
Yes.
not negative. And again, I don't want the misconception that the chimp's this terrible thing we need to kill. It's the best friend we've got. It's the colour in our life. I always say my chimp is brilliant. He's the best friend I've got. He wrote all the books, and he tells me things. I haven't got the insight, and he drives me to be affectionate, definitely. Because I guess my humour's more like Spock. So I know about Spock. Is that out of fashion now? Probably.
Listen, I'm a Trekkie, so I'm with you all the way.
Right. But I just think I have this chimp, but he's an inept best friend. So I have to correct him and say, look, I know what you're saying. We're not going to do it that way. All right. And he'll take, no, let me deal with this. I'll talk. You listen. So I have a working relationship. Does he get out? Yes. Do I think, okay, an apology's needed? Yes. But I don't want to lose being all me. That's my chimp is part of me. And also, I don't want people thinking, oh, good excuse. It's not an excuse model. As you know, I do a lot of animal work and rest of them. I've got dogs. I've got 3 dogs. But if one of them come up and bit you, I can't just say it's a dog. I would say, no, I'm responsible 100% for that dog. You are 100% responsible for your chimp. You cannot just hurt people or yourself and allow this to happen. You are responsible for it. So it's an accountability model. And I'm not adverse to pulling people up and saying, no. You've got to start taking responsibility.
So actually your chimp is quite good to keep you in check.
Oh, massively.
Yeah. So everybody needs the chimp.
Massively.
It's really that... I mean, this is such a nice way to kind of round up, really, when we talk about... Because I was for a while thinking, well, why have we got the chimp? Why don't we just try and get rid of the chimp? But that's kind of explained it to me rather brilliantly, that the chimp behaves in a way that will show us how to behave.
It warns you.
It warns you.
It warns you.
Yes.
It warns you of danger. It warns you. It picks up signals all the time. It reads body language. It reads people's eyes. The human aspects of the brain can't do that. They really are fairly... They have emotion, but they're based on logic.
So after my operation, I had no short-term memory.
Right.
I couldn't remember. If my boyfriend went to the loo, I didn't know he was in the house. Right. When he came out the loo, I was like, oh my God, you're here. Right. But he'd been there for hours. Like I didn't know if I'd eaten.
Right.
I didn't know anything. No short-term memory at all. Yeah. And every day I could feel it coming back a tiny, tiny, weeny bit, but it was bit by bit. I was constantly in chimp brain.
Yeah.
Because I had nothing to...
That's interesting because you're right, scientifically. The chimp has to live in the moment, whereas the human's got a memory back to contextualise. And so, again, one of the things I do therapeutically is bring people out of the moment and look at the bigger picture, which then gives you a...
I didn't have a bigger picture.
Yeah, you can't.
That was so interesting because when you said about... oh, God, that's so funny. I can't remember now. You just said something about the chimp brain and how it... and that's why I was talking about the operation because it reminded me of exactly how I felt. Oh, that was it. Brilliant.
See,
well done, me.
Coming back.
Yay! It was about...
It's good of me not to intervene.
Yeah, no, and I'm really grateful because I knew it was going to come. It was a bit like, you know, when you can feel it. It's on the tip of your tongue. Yeah. It was when you were talking about facial expressions. Yeah. And I became superhuman at reading faces because I couldn't go on anything else. Yeah. So... I could see frustration because I was really annoying. I mean, I was exhausting. I was exhausting to be around because I can't remember anything. I asked the same thing over and over again. I didn't
Let
know.
me correct, because I want people to listen. You were not exhausting, your behaviour was. There's a difference in you and your behaviour.
Thank you.
Distinguish.
Thank you.
You were doing what you could.
Yeah.
So the behaviour was exhausting, but not you.
Thank you.
It's a difference.
Thank you.
Let me tell you as well, because I'm on to this, then we better finish. The chimp gives us humour. The chimp is the one that gets the punchline, because the chimp believes what it hears first. That's why we're gullible. Somebody says something, we go, really? Then you go, hang on. And then you laugh, because that's not true. So it's the chimp that has sense of humour. A human hasn't got sense of humour.
Oh my
so if the chimp
brilliant.
brain gets damaged, we lose our sense of humour. I've actually had a patient who couldn't laugh. But he saw the amusing aspect of it, but it never made him laugh. He had some damage to the brain. But I said, well, you said, I still enjoy watching a comedy. I just don't laugh.
Wow.
Because that part of the brain had been damaged. So there's 3 circuits involved, but it's chimp circuits. So his human got the contradiction, whereas the chimp that believes it and then realises.
I've got a good joke for you. So it's not a joke for you. Somebody told me a joke, and they said, they've taken the word gullible out of the English dictionary. And I was like, really?
Oh, there you go. There you go. There you go.
And on that hilarious note, Prof. Steve Peters, I absolutely have had the greatest time ever. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming on. Can I just say to the people who are listening, if they manage to get this far, it's gone on. If they're not well, please get to a doctor and get assessed, because depressive illness is not that unusual in the community. So it's not just a case of you not being able to concentrate or feeling low or feeling bad. Sometimes that's a presentation. So just get checked. But if it isn't that, then just do yourself some favours and really just work on yourself and the relationship you've got with yourself. It's worth it. It doesn't have to be my model. There's tons out there that's really good, like mindfulness. Even hypnosis can work very well with people, or just a counsellor going through things where you think there's nothing specific, but the counsellor will work wonders for you.
But something else I think that's worth saying, if you can't afford a counsellor, you can afford a book. And the books that you've written are all going to be listed. But if somebody was really struggling and it wasn't like a clinical depression that they needed treatment for with a GP, but it's something that they feel like they could change, but they just don't know how, which book do they buy? If they can only afford one.
A Path Through the Jungle.
A Path Through the Jungle.
Definitely, because it's an exercise. It goes through it, and the criticism of the Chimp Paradox was that it doesn't do that. It gives you concepts, but it's not actually a course, whereas this one was written
specifically.
Yes, and it covers so much.
I really like the idea of what you saying you could do it in a group, but I love the idea of doing it with a best friend.
Yeah.
That
Chimp buddy we call.
Yeah, that you could do it together.
Yeah.
And it's nice in Narcotics Anonymous. You do the steps and then you talk it through with someone.
Yeah.
And actually talking through something out loud is such a helpful process of processing.
Yeah. Exactly. I say a human comes in and listens. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. I absolutely loved it. Everybody, round of applause for Steve.